part of that process of getting to a point of writing a book is really about sharing and creating something with your kids. For me, with my kids, I wanted to take the opportunity to build something that they'll remember and that they can admire and look back and be like, my dad made that.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Next Level Thinkers, a charting new horizons of brilliance podcast. In Joe Bell's upcoming book, The Cosmic World of Olympus, The Battle of the Throne, Joe gives us a sneak peek into the story of a celestial world where harmony once reigned, but now has been shackled by a tyrant's unyielding grip, like a vice clamped on its very soul. In the heart of this realm, 4 young elemental gods are destined to emerge as guardians, like the courageous sentinels of fire, the soothing guardians of water, the revered stewards of Olympus's sacred soil, and the elusive whispers of air. These elements are the lifeblood of the cosmos, and these emerging deities are its last stronghold of hope against the iron fist of tyranny. Writing a book is a significant undertaking for the very busy Cowboys Fit elite fitness trainer, Joe Bell. We will explore what the process was like for him and how he found the time and to balance with his other responsibilities, and how becoming a husband and father has influenced your perspective. So stay tuned for this amazing podcast with Joe Bell, author of The Cosmic World of Olympus, Battle of the Thrones. Joe, first of all, hey, thank you very much for taking my offer into being the Next Level Thinkers of Charting Horizons of Brilliance podcast. I'm so inspired because, where you were 5 years from now and where you are today, an author of a book, is like, I recognize that there's this next level of transformation that has to take place, and a next level of self-awareness and actually being and becoming, And that was one of the main reasons why I asked you to be a part of the podcast. Our journey started off with you when we both were at Cowboys Fit when we first started, right? And I think you were relatively new. It was a whole brand new facility too, maybe 2 or 3 years old or something like that. And I remember you handed me this cross, and it meant so much to me that, because I think at that time I was like struggling and just trying to transition to other things, and when you handed it to me, man, I was like, man, I ain't never gonna let that thing go. I'm gonna keep it. And I don't know how long ago that was. How many years do you think it was?
It was probably about 5 years ago now.
Yeah, it's been a while, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure the other day when I showed it to you, I said, hey, Joe, I want to show you something, man. And I handed it to you. What were your thoughts?
Man, honestly, it meant a lot to me that you actually kept it.
Yeah.
And that it did, in fact, mean a lot to you at the time.
Yeah.
I think so often that we forget that we get so busy with our own lives that we forget that about the people that we come across in our daily life, and everybody's at a different spot, and sometimes it's like a moment to like breathe and be still in the moment and acknowledge other people around us, and let them know that God loves you, like God takes care of you.
Yeah,
you're good.
The other thing too, man, it was so important for me to let you know that that what you did was important. You know what I mean? And so that kind of takes us to where we are now, is what you're doing is important, right?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. It's such an interesting take. I like what you had said, like, 5 years ago till today, like what kinds of things had to happen along that journey to get to this spot. And I think evolution of oneself, always looking to get better, always looking to, and nobody, I'm a firm believer of this, nobody just makes it on their own. Like nobody just arrives. There's a village of people always behind every individual. And most of the times those stories don't get highlighted and shown. but they mean so much to, the person that's journey that is coming of age, so to speak, right? Is that there's so many people that support them and are along for the ride, if you will, right?
Yeah.
That you got to have the backing. It's very challenging to do it without support.
Yeah, and how much do you think that, like, you say backing, right? Like some of it's conscious and subconscious, right? Like, you consciously gave me this cross, and I subconsciously appreciated it, and I wanted to make sure you knew, like, that it was a God conscious moment for both of us at that time.
Yeah, I mean, that's, for me, somebody did it for me.
Okay.
And honestly, I was at a pizza shop in McKinney, and a gentleman came up to our table and just said, hey, young man, I just want you to, I want you to have this.
Oh, wow.
And that was the extent of that interaction. It was, and I thought to myself, like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, this is extremely powerful. Like, I still have mine, and I was like, I want to be able to do for other people what this gentleman did for me.
That's so cool, man.
And pass it on moving forward.
In your upcoming book, The Cosmic World of Olympus, The Battle of the Thrones, it sounds intriguing. Give us a little sneak peek into the story and what inspired you to write it.
So what inspired me to write this is such an interesting thing because I have two young kids, and I have a little boy and a little girl, a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And my son and I, he's kind of like a wild spirit. I say wild spirit, but like he is very like thought and practice, but he likes stories. He likes that adventurous type things. I have a tattoo sleeve, and on my forearm I have a Poseidon tattoo, and he always wants to see it. He always wants to look at it, and he wants to have dialogue around it, right? And so we talk about the Greek gods and what their source of power is, and it'll be funny because it'll be a thunderstorm outside, and he'll be like, "Dad, is that Zeus?"
Oh, really? Wow, that's so cool.
And so part of that process of getting to a point of writing a book is really about sharing and creating something with your kids. With my kids, I wanted to take the opportunity to build something that they'll remember and that they can admire and look back and be like, my dad made that.
Yeah.
And that to be something that's powerful for them. So the journey along the way in getting to here to writing a book, I started off by looking at some of the things that they were playing with. Right off the bat, my son went through this phase of playing with stuffed dolls. And so I wanted to make stuffed dolls. I wanted to make something nostalgic for him when he looks back on his childhood to be like, man, that was so cool. My dad made that for me. Yeah. And so it started off in a journey in pursuit of childlike things, and then it kind of transformed into this book that I have here. And I realized that the power is really in storytelling and sharing stories and moments with the people you love. So that's how we got here.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I mean, I think it's so important. I think it's so cool because you can go buy a Mattel doll, right? But you can have the imagination that you have, and then you say, look, like you said, my dad made this when I was a little kid, and you don't have a Mattel this or whatever other brands of toys there are, but there's only one Joe Bell toy, one Joe Bell toy that will pass on for generations too, right? It's a stuffed animal and a book too, right?
Yes. Yes.
And your story involves a celestial world. Oh, sorry. The book introduces 4 elemental gods, right?
Yes, sir.
How did you develop their characters, and what significance do they hold in the cosmic world?
So we got to this point. So I looked at the story like this. Most people have an idea of Greek mythology, but what I felt like didn't make it attractive is the characters, although people identify them in certain lights, I wanted to kind of take a different approach and a different lens to traditional Greek mythology. My my lens that I wanted to take a look at it from was from the scope of what if everything that you thought to be true was in fact false? What if everything was not as it seemed? What if Olympus wasn't some mystical mountain on, in Earth, on Earth, in its own realm, right? What if Olympus was its own planet, created for the gods by the gods? And what if the heroes of that story, that are herald heroes like Zeus, what if it's not what it seems? What if Zeus is actually the villain and Hades is in fact the hero? And so I take my readers through a journey starting all the way back to their conception of how did we get there to this point where we herald Zeus as the king of the gods and Hades as this villain. Where they're in fact brothers. And you have these brothers that Hades is in fact the oldest brother and Zeus is the youngest. Well, how did you get the youngest brother to be the king of the gods? Right? When that's not his position in the family hierarchy. What are you willing to compromise? What are you willing to do in order to seek out that type of power? And so I take my readers all the way back to the journey of, you got to understand the origin. How did it start? They're brothers. They have this brotherly love and bond. They're born from the elements of Olympus. And then how did we get to this space now where they're clashing, they're at odds? And so that's the path that I wanted to take readers, is this untold story that you haven't heard. And you have this one lens that you viewed it as because somebody told you so. But what if I told you it was wrong?
Yeah, that's so cool, man. It has that kind of like a, it's like a Cobra Kai feel to it, where you have Danny's supposed to be the good guy, but then the other guy, it's like which one was the good guy or the bad guy in the whole thing. That's so cool, man. Can you take us through the writing process and how did you approach the creation of the intricate and imaginative world? Like, how did you?
So yes, that's actually extremely cool to be honest with you. So what happened was, I actually started off designing cards for stuffed dolls, and on the back of the cards they actually have origin stories of all the characters, all the Greek gods. And I decided that, you know what, I'm getting kind of carried away with this. This is really infectious to be able to sit here and intertwine these relationships with these characters. And so at that point I was like, I've got a great story to tell here. And I was telling a buddy of mine this story, and he says to me, he goes, Joe, you should talk to my sister. She does screenwriting for networks in LA. And so I said, okay, that'd be great. I would love to connect with her. So I did. So we sat down and we connected, and I told her the story that I was making, I was creating, and she says to me, she says, Joe, this is amazing. Where's the book? I want to read this. And I said to her, it doesn't exist. I made it up.
Yeah.
It's not a book. And she says, oh man, you need to write a book. You need to write that. And so, man, 11 months later, I finished the first of 5. So the process of it, how I did it, is I went back to the table and I said, okay, I need to talk to a lot of authors out there. I need to talk to people that have come before me that have done this type of thing, and because it's a new space for me. And so I had met with various different people in the storytelling industry, and through that, I started applying the things that they were telling me. One was, tell the story how you would want it to be told in its entirety. And then I did, and I kind of mapped it out. And then through that, I was told, tell me how many 3-act structures do you have in the totality of the story? And so I went ahead and did that, and come to find out I've got like 5 books in the story that I'm telling, right? So that's how I kind of knew exactly where I was in the storytelling process and how many books I had. Now I had to subdivide them and run through the 3-act structure, such as, sighting incident, obstacles, right? Climbing, Act 1, obstacle, climax, Act 2, wrap up, tie it all back in. And I did that with all of my, all of the books, all the versions of the stories that are to come with the Cosmic World. This is just the first one. of the series. But that's part of that. That's the thing that I really enjoyed was like, oh, okay, cool. So I have this story to tell. Now let's dice it up and let's give some details to this.
Yeah.
Let's give the backstory. These scenes and these moments in time where it's pivotal for these characters, and they're at crossroads, and there's such a crazy dynamic with this that from the lens of if you're a parent, there's an element to where you can connect with the parent, the person that's taking care of the gods, right? So Gaia, Mother Nature, births these gods, these elemental gods from her elements of Olympus, but she can't raise them herself, right? So she can't teach them all the things that they need to learn to get to the place where they challenge the tyrant control of Olympus. And so to get to that spot, she needs to give them to somebody that can teach them how to be good young men. And that character actually is my son in this book.
Oh, wow.
His name is Ethan. And so Ethan and his wife Raven raised the 4 elemental gods to one day fulfill their destiny and challenging the tyrant of Olympus. So it's a special story because, again, I get the opportunity to create something and include members of my family and my kids into the journey.
Yeah.
And so that means a lot to me, to be honest.
That's so cool. That was a question I was going to ask you. But which character are you in your book?
So I personally don't have a character by name, but by character trait.
Yeah.
I feel as though I connect best with Hades.
Hades, okay.
Interestingly enough, yes.
Wow.
With that being said, it's because of all of the things that he is and he represents, right? And so I'm the oldest of 5 kids in my family. And so being the oldest, you kind of start to be the leader. And so for me, Hades being the oldest, he is the leader of the children or the kids in their household, right? Or the young gods, if you will. So I kind of resonate with that character in particular.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I love the fact that you saw inspiration with your son Ethan, your wife, your family, your siblings. That's so cool. I think that's probably I think that was like one of your one of the strengths that got you through it, right? That you tapped into this, like this is my son. The love and passion I have for my son is motivating me to continue to write this book. Is that correct when I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have young kids and you're going through a creative process, they are the motivation of what it is that you do in making this. Any opportunity that I can to insert a character or a member of my family or have somebody even be that's the thought of who this person is in my mind, and I draw from my experiences with them and from them in developing these characters that I view them as in my book. So it's honestly it's a very fulfilling thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Okay, without giving away spoilers, how would you describe the transformative journey of the main characters throughout the narrative?
So that's an interesting question. That's a really good question, because I think what you find is that through the journey, and the main character is really Hades.
Yeah.
And through the journey, you find that he goes through these pivotal growth periods, and in the growth from an adolescent to the leader of his family, you see him grow up and grow into a young man, God. But they don't start off that way. They don't start off with all these, gifts and abilities. They grow into them. And part of that is having the interactions, the human interactions, the mortal interactions that they have and the relationships that they create that force them into these emotional states by soliciting emotional responses that draw out their godlike abilities and powers.
Wow.
And so I think that when you walk through that journey with them, with Hades and the other gods, that you can connect with them. You've kind of I found a way to immortalize gods in a sense where you can really sit back and be like, man, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I really can relate to that. Man, if that was me in that situation, I don't know, maybe I would have done it a little bit differently, but I can see how he got there.
Yeah.
Right? And so it kind of pulls on those emotional strings, if you will, with certain events that pop up where, you know, you got to kind of make a moral decision.
Yeah.
And what would you do if you were so inclined to be in that position?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the fun part for the reader.
Yeah.
And in writing this too is making these gods human, if you will, to a degree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so making them to a point where you can connect with the character.
That's so, I like that, man, because, you know, tapping into humanity, right? And, you know, we have this self-righteousness going on in this world, right, where I'm always right, and there's only one right, and it's whatever I say is right, right? And having that humanity, we're saying, where people aren't always going to be right, but there's going to be, you know, they're good people anyways, right? They're, you know, like there's that human element to everything, and I like that you're able to tap into that and transpose that into your writings as well. The world needs to hear more of that. You know what I'm saying? They need to see gods be, you know, some gods be, you know, human, you know, and make mistakes and have to have these decision-making processes, right?
Yeah, I think making them relatable,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Making them relatable.
Yeah.
And so that's what, I found it very, very fun to make them relatable.
Yeah, that's cool. Being a fitness trainer and an author are diverse roles. Do you see any intersection between the two worlds, and did any of your experiences influence the other?
Yes. In fact, I think that being in the fitness industry and being a trainer has been massively beneficial. One is that I meet a lot of people and a lot of human interaction.
Yeah.
And being in that world, like, there's some hats that you wear that you wouldn't think that a trainer wears. Like, there are days that I'm sometimes a therapist for people.
Yeah.
And there are days that, you know, I'm there to drive and motivate people. And there are days that, you know, somebody just needs to hear, you know, some words of encouragement, and sometimes that they just need to hear, you know, I see you and I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And so having those types of interactions on a day-to-day basis, you get to you get perspective. Perspective is really what I feel like allows me to, you know, take those interactions, take those experiences that I may not ever have the ability to experience personally because, but I get to learn through other people.
Yeah.
And so when sitting down and doing a creative, you know, going through a creative process like writing a book, it's those interactions with people and perspectives that I get from other people that allow me to take a different viewpoint, a different lens.
Yeah.
And so that helps in the creative process. So even though they don't seem to have many parallels to one another, I definitely think that the amount of human interaction and connection allows for the creative process to kind of shine through a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you have so many human interactions.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, you're right. Like I could see that your role as you can be a counselor, a listener, you know, empathizer, you know, and then you can be the motivator, the drill sergeant, the let's get after it. Yeah, I like that, man. Now that your book, you've released your first book, what emotions and reflections are surfacing as you prepare to share the Cosmic World of Olympus, the Battle of the Thrones with the world?
So this is a very interesting question because honestly, a couple people have said this to me, and it's the hardest thing for me personally to do is live in the moment and like appreciate moments. Personally, I am a person that is, I like to check boxes, right? I'm a box checker. Okay, so given a task, totally understand what the task is, boom, let's get it done, let's get it, and not get it done carelessly, not through just go through the motions, really execute and follow through and get it done like the right way. Like I really, like that's what drives me to be better.
Yeah.
But as soon as I do something, I tend to be like, got it. I'm on to the, like, let's go tackle the next thing.
Yeah.
And so being in the moment is very challenging at times for me. And so talking to a lot of people, you know, thereafter is like, Joe, breathe for a second. You put in a lot of work to get to this point, to have this book done. And it's not an easy task to do. And it's not something that is, you know, it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. And breathe for a second. Breathe for a second.
Yeah, breathe for a second. And yeah, you know, and the fruits of your labor are they'll be multiplying. You know, it just takes one person to buy it, you know, and another, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, this is really taking off. Let me ask you a question, okay? Mm-hmm. You got somebody out there that's going to watch this. Some of your friends, some of the acquaintances we know each other know, and they're going to be inspired by that. You've taken that. You've taken it to the next level. You actually put your words into. We put your words on paper, but you also put them into action, right? People who are trying to get over that hump, they're trying to they're almost there, but they haven't really made that leap of faith. What are two or three pieces of advice you would give somebody that says, "Hey, I want to be a writer too. I want to tell my story, or I got a story to tell." What three pieces of advice, whether it's inspirational or three things that you say, okay, these three things you got to have in order?
So that's another great question. I would say, one, being in motion, being in action. Action drives everything. It doesn't have to be perfect, and oftentimes it's not going to be perfect. You're going to be super critical of your own work. You're going to be super critical of yourself, and so getting something out there, doing something, be in action, because you're never going to get perfection, especially to your own standards. You're never going to get it.
Yeah.
So if you just do something, produce something, be in motion. So I don't know if we ever talked about this. So I was going through a rough spot in my life back in 2016-ish, 17-ish. And I did a self-development course called the Landmark Forum. And one of the things that I did when I went into that course was like, I really wanted to authentically be a person of action. So not just by because everybody's got ideas, but 99% of ideas don't actually get fulfilled by somebody. It's the hang up. And I felt like at that point in my life, I had a lot of ideas and I had very few action. And it was really about getting honest with myself and getting tight with a very close group of people. We were about 100 people, and we were forced to really be vulnerable and share thoughts, deep thoughts, intimate stories about ourselves with strangers, and really want to take away the fact that I needed to be I desire to be in action, to be a person of action. And I think if anything else, take a step every day. And you hear it all the time, right?
Yeah.
We hear it, 1% better. Be 1% better every day.
Yeah.
Being a person of action. If you have the dream, if you have the vision, start small and just make one step towards that.
Yeah. That's cool. My friend Paul Slough, we were talking about, I don't know what we were talking about, but he sent me a message and it said, just, period, keep, period, moving, period. And I was like, my head explodes. Just keep moving, man. And that's pretty much what you're saying. Just keep taking that next step and take the next right step, or make the next right decision. You know.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's easy to say conceptually. It's very elementary to say, hey, but just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep moving. The idea seems very easy.
Yeah.
In practicality, it's very exhausting.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not going to, and I say this in the health and fitness world.
Yeah.
In the health and fitness world, what is the biggest thing that prevents people from continuing to go forward is that you hit these plateaus, these roadblocks, and you start evaluating the amount of effort that I put into something and the given result up to this point. If it doesn't feel like I'm getting the desired result in the time frame or of my expectations, it's human nature to abandon it.
Yeah.
Right? So that is in fact the hardest thing is I was telling another trainer yesterday this, her name is Lynn, and I was telling Lynn this, one of the things that I admire the most about her is she is without doubt, without fail, it's the littlest thing and the same thing, the detail, it's consistency is the hardest thing ever. Being consistent, just showing up, keep moving.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, last question. Your book appears to be a legacy for your children. You've mentioned that, right? How do you envision them benefiting from your life experiences and the wisdom you've gained?
Oh, man. So the one thing I really hope that my children take away from this is that I hope that I instill in them the value of hard work, like work hard. And if you work hard and you work hard enough, long enough, and connect with and share your story and connect with people in your community, connect with like people on a real level, and like there is no dream that isn't obtainable. There really isn't. And I hope that as they grow up and they grow older and I hope to be that example for them to don't be afraid to share your story.
Yeah.
We all are walking this journey in life, and life is not to be taken too seriously.
Yeah.
Share with them, share with each other, and don't be afraid to put in a little hard work. You'll get there.
Awesome, man. Okay, where people want to get a hold of your book, do you have a website? Give everybody the directions.
Yes, the Cosmic World of Olympus.com. Very long, I understand, but the Cosmic World of Olympus.com is my website, and you can actually obtain this book on Amazon and Kindle. Amazon.com, search The Cosmic World of Olympus, Battle of the Throne, and it's also on Kindle as well.
Joe, my man.
Brother,
love you, brother. Love you, man. I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's such you're breaking new horizons of brilliance, man, and like this is a new horizon for both of us. We get to share this time together, and I appreciate that.
No, I really do too. Thank you so much, Prash, for having me on, and I appreciate it, really.
Oh, you're welcome, man. All right, guys, that's all we got for the Next Level Thinkers Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for my guest, Joe Bell, author and writer of The Cosmic World of Olympus. Go check it. Go to the website. Get his books. I love you guys. As I always say, have peace and light in you. Remember that the ocean